All right, we'll call this regular session to order. I'd like to introduce the interpreter, Jose Medina.
Si alguien desea escuchar esta conferencia en español, puede obtener un dispositivo electrónico a la entrada del cuarto de conferencias.
Thank you. And our usual meeting announcement, this meeting is being broadcast live and recorded. The recording or webcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Fulmer.
Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have two actions that were taken in closed session. On a motion by Board Member Fulmer and a second by Board Member Gamoyan, the Board agreed unanimously to appoint Didi Somavia to the position of Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources Development. Didi has served as an interim superintendent of Human Resources Development since July 1st, 2019. Prior to her current position, she served as the Administrator of Human Resources Development for 4 years. Her past assignments include serving as principal at Crestwood Elementary School, assistant principal of both Crowley and Fairview Elementary School. She has served as an elementary school teacher, curriculum coach, and Visalia Unified and Fresno Unified School District. Ms. Somavia earned a master's degree in education with an emphasis in reading and language arts, as well as bachelor's degree in liberal studies from California State University, Fresno. She also holds a multiple subject teaching credential, a reading specialist credential, and an administrative services credential. Congratulations to Ms. Somavia. Also in closed session on a motion by Mr. Fulmer, a second by Mr. Foster, the board agreed unanimously to appoint Doug Cardosa to the position of Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. Doug Cardosa has served as the Director of Human Resources Development since September 2015. His past assignments include serving as principal of Viva Blunt Elementary School, where he was instrumental in implementing the Collective Autism Partnership CAP program, principal at Highland Elementary School, assistant principal of Houston and Royal Oaks Elementary Schools, and assistant principal of La Jolla Middle School. He has also served as middle school science teacher, mentor teacher, coach with both Visalia Unified and Exeter Unified. Mr. Cardoza earned a master's degree in education from Chapman University, as well as a bachelor's degree in biology from Oklahoma Panhandle State. He also holds, that one got me, Panhandle. He also holds a single subject teaching credential in biology and chemistry, and an administrative services credential. Congratulations to Mr. Cardoza. All right, we have two revisions on the agenda, number 6 and number 26. This is the time for general public comment. General public comment on any school-related topic may be heard at this time. The board asks that any public comment on an item listed on tonight's agenda be addressed at the time the item comes up for discussion by the board. Pursuant to board policy, the board may limit individual comments to no more than 3 minutes and individual topics to 20 minutes. It is recommended, if you are commenting, that you first state your name. Is there any public comment? All right. We'll move on to collaborative partnership recognition. Inclusion number 1, California Health Collaborative. Mr. Escobar.
Good evening, members of the board, President Crabtree, Dr. Raveline, Frank Escobar, Director of Student Services. I'm here this evening with the distinct honor to recognize one of Visalia Unified's newest proud partners. The California Health Collaborative is a statewide nonprofit organization housed up in the Fresno area. And over the last, I would say, 8 to 10 months, we've had the opportunity to work very closely with this organization in a very important area of work that we're doing here in Visalia Unified. They have been hard at work for many years, particularly in the area of tobacco prevention, amongst others. They're an organization that is committed and dedicated to enhancing the quality of life of the people of California, particularly of those in underserved communities. So this evening, we want to recognize them as VUSD over the 1920 school year launched its drug, alcohol, and tobacco initiative with a heavy focus on the issue of vaping. Over the school year, the California Health Collaborative has provided countless hours of time to our work in this area. Some of those include providing tobacco and vaping community and parent presentations across our community. We have one coming up in Goshen on Thursday. We have one at Green Acres in a couple of weeks, and then we end up at Golden West and Mount Whitney in the next 2 months. They have also made themselves available to provide staff development in the form of education training for all of our middle school and high school staff, certificated teachers. They've completed all of the middle schools, and they're working on completing all the high schools this semester. They have also made themselves available to participate on our VUSD Vape Task Force, providing insight, resources, and advisement to our council. And in addition to that, they've also been working over the better part of a couple of years with several of our students at Mount Whitney High School, helping them advocate and work with our city council on a tobacco ban, particularly around flavored tobacco, in close proximities to our school campuses. So this is an organization that has made themselves overly available to support the work that we're doing here in our district, as well as work in the community that is good for all. And we're very fortunate that we've had the opportunity to connect with them, and they were so willing to partner with us. And so this evening, it's my pleasure to recognize the California Health Collaborative for all of their dedication and support to the work of our district, and we look forward to more partnership as we continue forward. So with that, the California Health Collaborative. So again, California Health Collaborative, and they have a team here with us because that's how they do their work best. We recognize you, and it says, by the Visalia Unified School District and Board of Education this 11th day of February 2020 in appreciation for your support of numerous hours of educational training with our staff and parents in support of our drug, alcohol, and tobacco prevention initiative. With gratitude, we recognize your ongoing support and commitment as a community partner with Visalia Unified School District. And thank you.
All right, you guys, so we always take this down.
Thank you very much. It is good to have those supports. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does any board member want to pull an item? Do I have a motion? I have a motion by Mr. Fulmer, second by Ms. Gamoyen. All in favor?
Motion passes unanimously. Oh, Sia.
It says yea, but it's not there, so you want to reason.
Okay. Okay. Was it no or yes? Okay, the vote is unanimous.
When I went like that,
All right, enclosure number 18. This is Focus on Student Learning, Student Support Progress, Part 2. Enclosure number 18. Mr. Dillon.
Good evening, Dr. Raveline, Board President Crabtree, and rest of our school board members. My name is Ben Dillon, Director of Social Emotional Wellness in our Equity and Student Services Department, and with me tonight is Dr. Serena Arias, the coordinator in our Equity and Student Services Department. I'll let her come up and say some things in a little bit here. She's going to kind of carry the weight here tonight. But first off, just want to quickly say that to give a little context, we're here to share a little bit of kind of the back end. Mimi Bonds came and shared 2 weeks ago and provided you information and data about where we're at in terms of discipline, suspension, and expulsion data. And so tonight we'll be carrying on in that same vein, but now talking about the intervention parts of supporting student behavior and social emotional needs. So, oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. I apologize. I'm a little under the weather this evening, so you have to bear with me. So I'm going to do a little bit of an overview just of the slides. So the way this is structured is that this first slide, you'll see the data in the table, and then there's also just a graph representing that data as well. For the next slides, you'll see the graphs and the tables separately, but that's what it is. It's showing the same kind of data, and it's broken up by some different demographic groups. So this first slide is really just showing overall data, and you can see progress of interventions recorded using PowerSchool. And many of you know that we've really been building out our capacity to capture that data and better represent, more accurately represent the work that's happening on our campuses with our students. So the one thing I would just point out here, and I think our biggest takeaway when you look overall, is that the amount of intervention that we are recording that's provided by our staff is increasing. If you look at the kind of chronological graphs over the past number of years, you see that trend, but definitely when you look even from last year to this year, you see just the numeric increase. The other thing I want to keep in mind is when we look at those numbers, those are hours and touch points of adults and kids. And I think it's important for us to keep that in mind, that every one of those numbers represents a time where an adult is working with a student. So if you looked at total part there, last year our total number of recorded interventions was 11,660 interventions provided to students through the fall semester. This past fall semester of 2019, our staff had recorded 13,503 interventions during that same comparable time period. When we break that up and we look at different demographic groups and we look at it by race and ethnicity, same type of display of information here. So when you look at the numbers from 2018 to 2019, what you see is the percentages represent the total amount, the percentage of intervention across that time span. So if you look at the total number that we talked about before provided, 73% of those interventions were provided for Hispanic students, 16% for white students, 5% for multiple race, and so on and so on. That's how the percentages are broken up, just to provide a little context. Again, what we notice is that overall we see for all subgroups, for all demographic groups, other than our Asian students, that the number of interventions has increased. Not huge changes in terms of allocation by demographic group in that area. This again is just a representation from last year's data from 2018, fall of 2018, August through December. And then again, 2019. What you will notice is that the actual allocation of our interventions do approximately mirror our student population groups. The next one I want to share with you is really broken up by grade. So if you look at the interventions provided by grade, you can get a little bit of a trend by looking at that. I'll show you the graphs in a second. But a lot of you can kind of see there's a concentration in the middle. There's almost like this beautiful little bell graph there, where we have interventions that are happening early on in elementary school as students are coming to us. We see that actually kind of come to a greater frequency when you look at those ranges that kind of hover around that late elementary, middle school, and then early into high school, and we see that kind of taper off and stabilize as we go into high school. Puberty's a fickle animal. When we go into looking at them in our graphs, you can see kind of what I was stating there. You can sort of see that sideways representation where we gradually increase in terms of intervention into middle school and early high school time, our 6th through 9th grade, and then that kind of taper off. Again, this is the percentages are broken up by where those interventions are allocated, and then the same data for 2019. When we look at it by gender, this is the one area where there was, between last year and this year, a significant increase in terms of where interventions were allocated between male and female students. So early last year, it was about 55 to 45%. This past fall, it was about 40 to 60% in terms of the breakup or the breakdown between male and female students who were receiving intervention. And here you can see, again, just the graphic representation of that. So again, context-wise, this is the total number and the total representation of interventions that are entered. Our interventions are entered by numerous staff members on our campus. And those interventions make up a myriad of different sort of types of intervention that are provided. And interventions are entered by our safe techs, by behavioral staff, by administration, by our specialists like psychologists and social workers, lots of different staff entering those, some of our intervention teachers. There's any of those types of interventions that are provided are entered there in that area. We are in the process this semester and from last semester to this semester continuing to get better at really honing that down so that we get more specific at what the interventions are. As we begin to build out and as school sites and we build out menus of intervention where schools are saying, hey, we're providing this, we have this available, and we're building that out in teams across our district, then we add that in because there are interventions that we are providing this year at some of our sites that weren't being yet provided previously at other sites. So as we identify those interventions, thanks to tech services and all the support they provided us, we're very easily able to add that in as an entry field so that we can then have staff begin recording that those interventions are taking place as well. So part of that you see is just as we expand that. Right now what I'm going to do is ask Serena to come up, and she's going to share with you a little bit more about some of the intensive work that we were doing, because I know in previous board reports we've shared about the need to really provide some targeted support and just frankly improve the quality of support that we provide for some of our students who have the most significant needs in our district.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Raveline, Board President Crabtree, and members of the board. As Ben mentioned, my name is Dr. Serena Arias, and I'm the coordinator in the Equity and Student Services Department, and excited to share some of the work that our team's been doing this year. So first, one of our department goals was to really provide additional support to our psychologists and administrators in the area of Tier 3, which is our supports that we provide for students that need more intensive and individualized support and plans. You can kind of get a description there. I'm not going to read it, but I do want to hit on the difference in approach that this model provides. So in the past, we used an expert model where individuals like school psychologists or behavior analysts would develop a plan in isolation and then share that plan in a meeting with the teacher, the student, and the parents, and say, here's the plan, we've collected some information, and here's what we think is best. So in this approach, it's using the experts, but it's pulling in the student, the teacher, and the parents from the jump, so that it's moving and shifting from an expert model to a more collaborative model. And so we were really excited to be able to move forward this year in training our staff with this work. Another critical point that I want to make with this new approach is that teachers are able to select from a menu of interventions the interventions that they feel would best meet the needs of their student, and then try that out for a week, and then come back to the team and say this worked or this didn't, as opposed to the expert model where we had one plan written by one person. So we feel like building a plan this way in a 4-week kind of sequence is going to really help the team be more collaborative and it be more of a team approach where the parent and the student are a part of that plan. So we find that is going to be really critical in our work moving forward. The other piece that I want to make with this is that its connection to restorative practices. So in the past, it may have felt like students or parents, this plan was being done like to them as opposed to with them. So we feel like experts coming alongside the student and the parents is really in alignment with our restorative work as well. We just finished day 3 of training for our administrators and our school psychologists, so we provided 3 full days of training this year, and we know that our work doesn't end there. So we are offering monthly kind of open sessions where myself, Gina Fabrizio, and Heather Plett, our district psychologist, are going to be offering additional support for any team member that chooses to have that option. I wanted to also, so I covered this already, sorry I didn't click the slide over, 2 full day trainings, and then also professional development provided to our school psychologists monthly. So I just wanted to share a little bit of the teacher feedback from this process. How do you feel about the current level of, about your level of involvement during the PTR, which is the plan, teach, reinforce the Tier 3 work? And this teacher said, I'll admit that in the beginning it seemed like a lot of work on my part. It was just another thing, but in the end it helped me make connections with my student, gave other support staff firsthand insight on how my student behaves. How did the level of collaboration support the plan development? This teacher said, I enjoyed working with my fellow teachers. Gabe, Alex, and Melinda helped students in a more specific process. I was able to consult with what works for other teachers and dealing with difficult students, but also with a trial run. Once I was done with my observations and reports, the staff was able to create a plan with the student and me in mind. It was nice that they were finally getting teacher input. And the last one, how does the PTR process differ from previous experiences in working with students with intensive plans? And this teacher wrote, as you may know, teachers would have received behavior plans for students without any consultation or support staff from support staff or admin. Most of the time, items would be suggested that wouldn't fit into my classroom, therefore I was left to figure it out on my own. With this process, I really felt like my voice and concerns are being heard, and that's from one of our teachers at the high school level. So just wanted to give you a little bit of feedback on that. And then here are 2 little snapshots of some videos from teachers that are in our training, kind of just sharing their thoughts on this process. And then I think we have one more.
Focusing on, oh, well, there could be this, or there could be this, so it gave me a lot of different perspectives to help my student, rather than just, one section. Yeah.
So again, that's just kind of a snapshot of the work that we are doing and continuing to do to support our psychologists and administrators with this work. I'm going to go ahead and let Ben share a little bit about, oh yes, prevent, teach, reinforce.
So one of the other things that we've been sharing about, also really ties in those additional supports and services that we found that we need when we have students who aren't experiencing success with the existing supports and services that are in place. And so we've shared previously that, oh. Help me out, Chuck. Thank you. Awesome. So we shared, and Brandon had shared with you all back in the summer that we were developing an on-campus intervention program, on-campus intervention classroom. And so really just want to provide a bit of an update on where we're at with that. So just as a reminder, a little bit about that opportunity. This is a short-term intensive intervention classroom for students in elementary school. What that does is it provides a very structured learning environment where we're able to provide intensive support for students who've demonstrated that they need that intensive level, the frequency of the support, the intensity of the support, the staffing ratio to provide that level of support. Because those needs at that time currently have exceeded what the site has been able to provide effectively. The other part of that, though, is that while that student is placed in a classroom, and that classroom is located at Linwood Elementary School, while a student is placed in there temporarily, there's a lot of support and resource that goes into supporting the school site and the staff who've been working with that student while the student is removed from campus and placed in this intensive opportunity for a brief period of time. You probably recall that we've piloted different opportunities and programs like this over the last couple of years, and we structured this way because what we found previously is that while we've experienced short-term success and some significant gains for students who were removed from that environment and provided with those really intensive, really structured supports and services, the ability to sustain that when they return is really, really difficult, especially when you're not in tandem working with the site staff and supporting the structures and supports and the intervention planning and things that they have in place while the student is in this program. And so that's really the dual nature of this is, yes, it's definitely intensive support for a student, but in reality, a student is not going to, like any of us, not a single one of us, if I decide, hey, I'm going to go on a diet or I'm going to start working out, which I should probably do, 4 to 6 weeks is not going to be the end-all be-all, right? You're just kind of skimming the top there. And so we recognize 4 to 6 weeks, while we're able to do a lot of investigation and figure some things out, and that's the most important part of that intervention is providing some of that for students out when they're provided there. The biggest thing is that we're supporting the staff and really making sure that those supports and those resources and those tweaks to the system and putting those interventions in place are there so that when the student returns back to their regular school site with their classroom, with their teachers, with the staff who know and work with that student, they're better able to meet the student's needs. So just a little bit about progress and where we're at. Back in the beginning of January, Brandon actually sent out the referral for the OCI program to our principals. As of now, we've received our first couple of referrals to the on-campus intervention program. We have a team that's come together and we review those referrals and then are able to provide resource and support for the school sites and staff who've done that. We've hired the teacher and the support staff for that classroom, and they've been already come on board. Marshall Thompson is one of our behavioral supervisors, and he's been instrumental in really helping to build that out, and he spent a lot of time really drawing from the resources also from Dr. Arias and others who've been mentioned tonight already in helping put significant training and support in place so that as students are just now beginning to enter into those intervention opportunities, they're doing so with staff who've been through a lot of training and really come together and built out how they're going to support students during that short-term time of intervention that they have them. Again, the materials, the resources, and those different things have all been ordered, they've been provided, they've set up classrooms, and now actually because we were able to bring our staff for the program on and get them hired, they've also been able to begin developing relationships and getting to know the Linwood staff as well, since they'll be working together and sharing a school site. So I want to make I'm sorry. Okay. I want to make a quick little transition here, and that's this. At the beginning of sharing about the interventions that are happening, and those interventions range from those things that are more preventative and proactive to the most intensive types of interventions, the things that Serena was just sharing about when we talk about Tier 3 and how Dr. Arias and others have been really leading and guiding our staff through that. But then as she's shared about Tier 3 training and the process and the approach that we've been taking with really helping to shift that a bit and make that more inclusive and more dynamic, and also with the on-campus intervention program, all of these things are amazing, but they take a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort. And there's no way that can be what we do for everything, because you would never be able to meet the need. What's most important is that we're laying a strong foundation so that all of our students, not just the students who at some point had to demonstrate this significant level of need. We don't want students to have to lack experiencing success in order to get access to intervention. And so this foundational part of what we've been doing over the past number of years is really critical. And what's exciting is to see how those marry together and to see how we're building out universal supports and school-wide and classroom supports and interventions using things like restorative practices and social emotional learning opportunities, and beginning to see that layer of support really then be the sort of the foundational piece that then we build all these other things off of. And so Dr. Arias will share a little bit about that as well, and we have some of the staff and students who've been a part of that to share briefly with you about their experience tonight also.
I don't want to take up too much time because I do want some others to get an opportunity to share the work that they are doing. So I've had the opportunity to work with a cohort of 7 administrators since the beginning of the year. We meet monthly and we learn more about social emotional learning and restorative practices and how to do this work alongside each other, and to not make it a top-down thing that's one more thing for teachers to do, but each administrator looks at this work and they try to figure out, okay, what does this look like for my school? How do I do this with my teachers? And so it's been an amazing experience that these administrators have engaged. You know, we all, again, in these meetings we've engaged in. And so I wanted to share just a little bit of feedback from teachers related to their implementation of social emotional learning and restorative practices. So the question was, how does social emotional learning and restorative practice support the work that you're already doing? So I'm just going to read a couple. I feel that the support for teachers has greatly increased since year 1. These practices are absolutely supporting the work that I'm already doing. It will help diminish behaviors in the classroom. These practices fall in align with mine. Students need to feel emotionally safe in order to focus on learning in the classroom. It will help develop stronger relationships between my students, myself, as well as my student relationships. Students will feel a sense of belonging at school. They will be motivated to participate in the classroom. So I just wanted to capture some of the survey data that we're getting from all of these teachers across these 7 schools that are engaging in this work. And also want to invite up a few people, amazing people who are going to share today. So first I'd like to invite, I'm just going to call them all up here, Dr. Karen Ari from GLC, principal from GLC, Taylor Hendershot, 6th grade teacher from Shannon Ranch, Miss Ruby McBride, ASB teacher, El Diamante, and her student Adele. Go ahead and just come on up. They're just going to share a little bit about the work that they're doing.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Ravelin, Board President Crabtree, members of the board, esteemed VUSD colleagues, parents, and other stakeholders. My name is Karen Oury, and I'm principal of Global Learning Charter School. Our school has been committed to supporting student socio-emotional development before we even opened our doors in August 2017. Our charter development team, of which some of you helped serve, developed 5 vision statements about developing the whole child. But one in particular calls out social-emotional learning loud and clear. It is, we believe that successful students are caring and open-minded. And we do. In fact, we believe success in life depends on it. So with that vision clearly identified, we looked to proven and effective practices to promote a more caring and supportive community. There are many, but I'm going to speak to just 2. The first is team meetings. Our classes in all grades from kindergarten to 8th grade meet daily for what they call either a morning meeting, a team meeting, or sometimes a community circle. And during these meetings, students quite literally circle up. They might be on in a circle on the carpet or pull chairs together and face one another and circle up to build community. Common elements of team meetings are opportunities to share, activities for team building, and discussions that I believe lead to stronger and more empathetic relationships. The second practice I wanted to highlight was restorative questions. Restorative questions guide our discussions with students. So when there's a student to have a conversation with, it's not one directional, it's not a lecture, it's a conversation. Restorative questions that we ask are: what happened? What were you thinking? What have you thought about since? Who was affected? And what do you need to do to make things right? Teachers share with me regularly the power of these two approaches. They have made a difference in student behavior, recidivism, teacher-student relationships, student-student relationships, and in our overall community. And I welcome any of you to visit our school because I really think you'll feel the difference. In a recent conversation with a veteran teacher who I very, very highly admire and respect, I asked her if she would still do team meetings if they weren't an agreement of our school. And she said in the beginning she was nervous, but she did them because we agreed to do them. She said now she would do them without a doubt. They make a difference in her children and in her. These systems take work, they take planning, they take training. We at GLC feel super fortunate to have the support of the district to support us in meeting this vision that we have to support student social emotional learning. We wouldn't be the school that we are without their support or without these practices. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Raveline, Board President Crabtree, rest of the board members, and the people out in the audience. Hello. That was really eloquent, by the way. Thank you. I don't know if mine's going to be as amazing as that, but I can tell you that every single day we have restorative circles in my class. Topics usually range from rather mundane to the really deep at heart, the ones that connect you with your students. And what I have noticed since day one, 105 days ago, whatever it may be, that there has been some sort of family, some sort of connection, some sort of bond that my students not only have made with myself, but with each other. When they enter into this class every single day, they know that it is a place of safety, it's a place of trust, it's a place of vulnerability. And there have been some incredibly brave and courageous conversations and some very incredibly tough conversations. But as a result of us being open and vulnerable with each other, we're learning a lot more about each other, and we're getting a lot more done. The students are wanting to come to school. They are crying when they get to go home. They don't want to go home. They want to be there. They want to learn. They want to grow. They want to become the people, not that they are, but that they are meant to be. And I think through this social emotional stuff that we are doing in this class every single day, at our grade level, at our school site in this district, is making a difference. We're changing this district from the classroom up, and we're going to be changing our community as a result as well. So I fully endorse this, and even though this is the first year we're doing this, I can't believe I haven't done this before, but the change is incredible, and it is a place where we're all on an equal level, teachers, student, administration, and it is something that I will highly endorse from now until I eventually retire. So thank you for listening to me.
Mr. Hendershot, how long have you been with the district?
This is my third year teaching.
Thank you very much. You have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And we hope to keep you around, because I know you do a good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Aveline, Board President Crabtree, members of the board. I'm the Activities Director at El Diamante High School, and when I started as Activities Director, one of the goals we had was to, start thinking the broad spectrum. How can we connect all kids? How can we give all kids a voice? What are the things we can do? And it's been a long process. I've been doing this 6 years. And, we work, we try. One of the things we added over the last couple years was something called the Minor Senate. It's a representative body. We have students from all our homerooms and all our clubs meet. It was every 6 weeks, but this year we thought we really got to go at it. We got to have it be more often. And when I went to a training last summer for restorative practices, I said, you know what, this is a way we can improve how this meeting works. We have to figure out a way how these 120 kids can have a voice and they can be heard, which is hard when there's one adult in the room and they all, they're kind of shy and they don't know each other. So the work of circles, we started doing it. It was me leading it, me sort of training, and it was okay. But Serena came to me and said, what do you think about training your students? And I said, I think that's a great idea. The best way for it to work is if kids are leading it, kids are running it. So we've trained about 45 kids. I brought one of my students, Adela Costa, here to talk to you about how that looked. We've implemented it, and she's going to share with you how it's working for us.
Good evening. I'm Adela Costa, and I've been in the ASB for, this is my 3rd year, and I'm a junior at El Diamante. I've learned through the restorative practices, I was able to build a bond with my other students, and I was able to build more of an understanding of what their idea and input was, because I feel like a handful of the students that would have more been quiet, they were able to share their ideas. So we were able to get the opinions from all of the students rather than the people who repeatedly tell their opinions. So we were able to get a larger audience. And then I feel like I'm able to grow through this restorative practices in other classes, because I know that in my English class we go through Socratic circles and we talk about a book or a poem, but I feel like if we include this in math or science or different types of subjects, we can expand it and we can be able to use this technique in other ways and stuff. Thank you.
Nicely done.
Thank you very much for sharing. So our last slide here is a little update on our TOSA positions. So we know that we provide a lot of training here at the district office, and that's great. However, sometimes when we're training here, and then our staff goes back to the classroom, it's like, man, it would be great to kind of have someone alongside, shoulder to shoulder, helping alongside me. And so these TOSA positions are really meant to be an extension of district office training, where teachers are able to get on-site modeling, coaching, and support in the classroom from a teacher. And so we really feel like this is just going to bolster up the support and be an extension, again, of the training that we're doing here at the district, but be able to do that through these TOSA positions. So, any questions?
Is there any public comment? Further public comment? Mr. Price.
Should have worn my sneakers. Could have gotten up here a lot quicker.
It's the red shirt.
Well, I wanted you to see me coming. Greg Price here for the Teachers Association. Good evening, Dr. Raveline, President Crabtree, and board members. I just wanted to first of all start off with a couple of commendations. So one thing that I've been asking for several years was a way to keep data in the system about behaviors and other things. And so this year is a year that we've started to do that. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. Secondly, another commendation would be for us starting out to have a more alternate placements for students, that they're just not fitting in the regular classroom. It takes them a lot of effort for them to stay focused and to keep under control. So I am very much in favor of positive discipline. I think that we need to keep doing that. I would like to go off on this a little bit in terms of, I don't know how balanced this presentation is. There's a lot of positive things, and there are quite a few of those that are going on. I want to make sure that everybody understands there are still a lot of teachers that are dealing with significant behaviors in their classrooms daily. I get emails and I get things coming in all the time. I know of one student that has had a very difficult time this year. It's 7 months that this teacher's been dealing with a student that has just been destroying classrooms and all sorts of things. And it's taken this long to get that student a different placement. That's too long. It affects the other kids' learning, and that student's probably not getting the best education they can because the teacher and the resources that are available just aren't enough. So I want to make sure that everybody is balanced in this idea of discipline and where we are. I really appreciate the teachers coming in and sharing their positive experiences. I hope we have more of those. I appreciate the principals coming in and sharing their positive experiences. I hope we have more of those. And I want to end my discussion today with some data for you that the teachers have collected. I had 835 teachers or so fill out a survey earlier with lots of data. So as we're balancing our approaches to how we're going to continue and move from here, I asked that you would read this data from the teachers. They spent a lot of time putting it together and taking the time to answer so that you had information from the ground level seats, or maybe the bleacher seats. I'm not sure what teachers can afford these days. But that's what I would like to contribute to this discussion. I thank you for your time, and I'm going to pass out those binders. They're right behind me. You can just move right along, Mr. Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. Price, and thank you for giving us the other side. I would like to say that I think the board probably has no illusions about everything is hunky-dory, as they say. I'm sure we still have problems, but it sounds like we're heading in a good direction to fix those problems. So is there any other public comment? Board member comments? Ms. Gamoyan?
I want to, I'm very happy about what's happening. I do see some really big improvements, and I read this survey. So I'm going to give you a few numbers because I am concerned about the flip side. I think this was a one-sided conversation, and I think we need to be real about what's happening. So out of those 835 teachers, they said 60%, which I love, said they know the pathway to get support. That's wonderful. That has improved immensely. The documentation is really working. I think there's, what I'm starting to see, I'm a firm believer in restorative practice. I did that for 34 years in my classroom. I didn't know what it was called, but that's what I was doing. But there has to be consequences. So when a question was asked, are students suffering, are there consequences for our students? 47% said never, 23% said most of the time, 16% said sometimes. And then when asked, are the conditions getting better? Is behavior better? 28% said, or 22% said better. And actually, when I read the comment, there was about 20% they said, man, it's flowing at my school. It's really working. 27% said it was worse, and 50% said it hasn't changed. And so when I'm in the field and I'm talking to teachers, I get one or two responses. Well, it is what it is. I'm just going to have to live with that. And that's not a good response. And the other response is, it's just not getting better. And so what I'm hoping is that we start really addressing these issues. That, those 7 schools, that's great. But we have 25 elementary schools, I don't know, 4 junior highs, 5 junior highs, I don't know how many. This needs to spread clear across our district. I'm very hopeful. Things are looking up from last year, most definitely. But let's get a balanced view and let's be in reality.
So let me comment real quick. One of the things, and I want to make sure that we're clear with the board, that our intention of sharing this report to you tonight was to provide you a progress and update on things that had previously been discussed. It wasn't necessary to say this is the current state and everything is reflected here accurately. And I want to make sure also that we share the reason why we're sharing about these services and supports and the additional needs is because we acknowledge that we've got a long way to go. We have a lot more work that needs to be done, and it's not one group or one school, it's all of us. We're in this together, and I haven't seen the survey data yet, but I'm interested to see that from Mr. Price, and look forward to doing that. One of the things that we're recognizing as well, and I think Serena mentioned that, is, there are steps that are being taken because of what our teachers have shared with us over these past years, and recognizing there are steps that are being taken, but there are more steps that need to be taken, and we really do have to make sure that support, and what she mentioned just a second ago about those teachers on special assignment that we're bringing in, those are part of that grant, and those are funded through the School Climate Transformation Grant. That grant is intended to really help provide greater support to do what you just mentioned, is that to scale out across our entire district and make sure that as a school district, not just part and parcel site by site, but all of our school sites continue to make progress.
I have another question about the TOSAs. That is funded by the grant, correct? Okay, so then are those, when you're hiring for those positions, are you clear that when the grant runs out, there's no more job?
Yeah, we've been very clear, and we've worked with human resources staff as well to make sure that those, and even in every interview we have with them, we're showing this is a grant. We share the grant's term and cycle with them as well, so they know that's a 5-year grant. We're in the first year, so that there's a lot of clarity up front about that. And
Okay.
same with all of those.
And the last thing I want to say is I'm very hopeful. So thank you.
Mr. Foster?
I remember President Kennedy said that he was an idealist without any illusions. I agree with Ms. Gamoyan. I'm grateful for the superintendent for creating Mr. Gridiron's position and then it extending outward to the sites. I really want to see a report 12 months from now to see what progress this program has done. I'm looking very much forward. Like I say, I'm an idealist, but without any illusions. I want to see how we're doing. Okay.
Mr. Guerrero?
Yeah, on the OCI classes, what curriculums are you using?
So the OCI classrooms are set up to where they're not a separate class. They're not a separate classroom. So the teachers who are in that classroom are working with the student's staff and the teacher of record that student has at their school site, and they're continuing on. Part of the reason why we have to do it really strategically is because if you think about K through 6, you could have multiple curricula that you're working through and really trying to make sure that we're supporting. So Sarah Seymour and staff from our curriculum instruction department, as well as our special education department and folks from our department, have come together to make sure that we're kind of wrapping support around so that those teachers know how they're doing that. But that is guided by the school team and their existing teacher. So it's the same curriculum.
All right, I was curious about that. And how many OCI classes are there again?
Currently, we have one OCI classroom we've opened. There's capacity there to support a number of students, but we try, ideally, to do that kind of work, you're trying to keep those numbers down. Currently, we've only had 2, almost now coming on 3 referrals for that classroom.
Okay.
Mrs. Naylor?
Yeah, thank you. I'm like Mrs. Gamoyan said, I'm hopeful too, and thank you for all your hard work. When you said you did 2 full-day trainings for site administrators, was that all the site administrators? How many administrators attended that, the 2 full-day trainings?
Yeah, so it was 3 days, and it was co-administrators, so assistant principals, and principals were optional because we didn't want to pull 2 administrators off-site for the training.
Okay, so was that high school, middle school, and elementary?
All assistant principals.
Oh, good. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you both for that presentation. All right, moving on to enclosure number 19, comprehensive support and improvement process. Mr. Sullivan.
Excuse me. Good evening, Board President, My name is Jim Sullivan. I'm an administrator. I'm here to present to you our comprehensive support and improvement schools and our support that we will be doing here at the district office. What I want to remind us is this is not like the old PI schools. I've shared this slide last year, and it's very important that we continue sharing this slide. After meeting with the two new principals, by teachers, there's still this perception that it is very much like it was in the past. If you remember in the past, it was top-down, exchange focused on schools in isolation. We looked at that school, we said exactly what you had to do, and we didn't really work with the staff, we just told them what they had to do. Our process now is much, much different. The principals bring in a leadership team, they develop the process, and they go out and implement it, and we start focusing on that with them. It is not a packaged approach, meaning that we create, and this is everybody, what's good for one school is not good for all. Each school determines and creates their own approach on this comprehensive support and improvement. Again, it's isolated with teams. We have a leadership team that comes in. For the 3 schools that are in comprehensive support, we'll bring them in 3 times. The other schools, we're going to be working with the principals. The principals will be working with their sites on the targeted, and I'll share that with you in a moment. And again, we have to, and we share it with our school site council. We share it with our LCAP. It'll be in our LCAP. The principals are very excited about working with their staff and with their site councils to see where they can improve. The criteria for selection, the same as last year. It's 67% for high schools, and then the bottom 5%, and the state has indicated that if the schools were all red, our schools were red and orange, and I'll share that with you real quick here. And how did we get our red and orange? I wanted to share with you and remind you again, it's average scale score meeting standard as 600. So this is an example. In our state test, we have average scale scores. So let's say the average scale score is 600. A student scores 560. The difference between on standard and below is 40, so that's 40 points below. So that's kind of how they figure out a school where they fall on below standard or above standard. So if your average student scored 40 points above standard, you would be 40 above. So to get to the color, we look at first the columns, because the columns determine where we fall for this year. So if we were 40 points below, we might be in the medium. And then we also then look at, did we decline from the previous year or increase from the previous year? So we would slide across this way, and then that determines where our color is. If we were medium and then we went around and increased significantly, we would be green. So that's how we get our colors. Any questions on that part? So Crestwood is our first school. If you look at the all students, they've scored red and orange. We'll be working with Ms. Peterson and her staff. The next school is Highland, and again, they're all red and orange. These schools, we'll go through the process of what we'll do in just a minute after I share some of the other ones. Sequoia is all red and orange as well. Sequoia was in last year, and we'll continue working with them. So the selection, there's also called targeted support interventions, and this is for student groups for 2 years in a row that were scoring either red and orange. So what that means is, based on our student groups, if you scored 2, and we'll go there maybe. So if we look at El Diamante in 2018, you can see they were orange in suspensions for students with disabilities, orange in math, and red in ELA. And if you look at 2019, you can see they were red in suspensions, orange in math, and red in college and career. Sorry, orange in graduation. And then I just wanted to share with you the rest of them, and I'll give you just a few moments to look at that. You can see Four Creeks is homeless, Goshen is homeless, and Willow Glen is homeless. The other ones are with students with disabilities. And again, it's if students are homeless, if it's 15 students in your school, that's why students with disabilities is 30 as a subgroup. So support for our schools. We're going to lead the school to determine the focus and the aim statement. If you remember last year, we did the aim statements, and we kind of lead and work with the schools on that. We don't determine that as on our end. We just ask lots of questions. We share data. They look at data. They're going to look at deep data on their on special ed students, for example, or their homeless students if they're targeted. Based on that data, they go through a process to determine what is one reason why students aren't coming to school. For homeless, there's several reasons, so we want to see why are they homeless, there's several categories of why they're homeless. So they're going to go through all of these different processes and information to figure out one thing they're going to work on. And that's something new for us in education, is we're working on one little item to make it better for those students. This is about a process. It's not about making the difference right away. It's about a long-term process. The sites that have really embraced this, you can see that they use this process with almost anything they're implementing because it works. It's about working with your staff, working with your, based on your data to determine where to move next. So our next steps, we're beginning to meet with the principals. In March and May, the principals will develop their school plans. To develop their school plan, they have to have a plan in place, so they'll be working with their staff. We'll be meeting with principals at the targeted schools 3 different times. We'll be sharing them different information, different data. We'll walk through the process. They'll do some of it with us. They'll take it back to their staff, do that part of it, and come back, and we'll be working back and forth. The next part with the CSI schools, they'll be coming in for 3 days completely, or 3 full days, each school individually. In May, the plans will be written and for their single school plan, for their school plan for student achievement, and then in August of next year, they'll begin.
Is there any public comment? Board member comments? You must have done a good job, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving to enclosure number 20, Inclusivity Task Force update. Dr. Avalon.
Good evening, President Crabtree, members of the board. I'm Dr. Tamara Raveline, superintendent, and presenting with me this evening is Brandon Gridiron, our Administrator of Equity and Student Services. Just as a reminder, last year we started 3 Inclusivity Task Force, students, community, which is called Common Ground, and our staff, which led to our combined Inclusivity Task Force meetings and some recommendations that came to you last May. I want to go through these recommendations and then let you know the progress we have made. So I'm going to start, and then Brandon's going to jump in. So one of them was to create an equity oversight and advisory committee and a district department charged with monitoring equity. And we're in the fledgling stages, but with the appointment of Mr. Gridiron and some of the work we've been doing, we're well on our way. So you can see the progress we've made. On this slide, we have our administrator here with me. We have an equity group, a task force that's composed of classified certificated staff, which is teachers and other certificated staff and managers. We have just finished this last Saturday our 10-day training of cultural proficiency. So we're certified now to work on a plan and to provide training to others in our district. We have an action plan in development. We'll share with you once we flesh that out. We already have a board policy on equity, and we're working that our managers will receive cultural proficiency training in March of June of this year, and then we have to develop how we're going to roll that out. The cultural proficiency training is really about connecting. It's about connecting, listening to others, understanding others, because we want to make sure that all of our staff and all of our students feel loved and cared for in the workplace. And that is really the thrust of the cultural proficiency training, is to make sure that people feel a part of our schools and a part of our district.
Good evening, Board President Crabtree, members of the board, those in the audience. I'm Brandon Gordon, Administrator of Equity and Student Services. So as Dr. Raveline mentioned, a part of our work is really focused on, as she said, listening to the stakeholders and various people within our community, but also improving our communication. And so making sure that the work that we're doing within our district, we're creating opportunities to share that with others in our community with regards to the progress and the feedback that they provided to us in regards to policy changes and making expectations and supports clear as well. One of those things, and just was mentioned earlier, is the transparency about what's going on within our district and the changes that we're making to improve upon that. And so one of those things really was the utilization of our power school system, how we're tracking data, how we're communicating with what consequences are happening, what they are, how are we being consistent with those things, and knowing that we have areas for improvement. And so I always love when Mr. Price provides data to you all, because that data then informs us of areas that we need to work on and acknowledge that we need to correct some, make some changes. But we can't do that without the data and the feedback. And then the partnership with everyone to understand what changes need to be made. And so we continue to do those things through our quarterly equity forums, events that we have within the community, here in the district office, to get input from everyone with regards to how can we make the improvements we need to make to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our students, staff, and families. So in addition to that, we also talk about how do we create opportunities for multicultural activities, intentional school-wide events and activities and making connection. You've seen one of our teachers from El Diamante High School's activities director has really talked about how do we make connections with our kids? How do we make opportunities for kids to connect? And the young lady who spoke tonight spoke about it beautifully. She really did. She said, this was an opportunity for me to have a voice and share my voice where otherwise I wouldn't have that opportunity. And so we want to create spaces and opportunities where kids are able to engage in dialogue with one another, so that way they can learn about each other and begin to build connections and relationships with one another, so that way we can improve the cultures in our school. And so, you know, as a part of that, we talked about hiring our full-time activities directors, developing leadership, but we really took a focus on, and Dr. Arias talked about it tonight, on training our students on how to facilitate circles, how to facilitate conversations with one another. We understand that a lot of the challenges that take place within our school is with regards to the connection between the students with one another, but also the students to our staff. And we have data, you know, from year surveys to suggest that connection was important, and some kids and staff members did not feel connected to school. And there's also data suggests, which we talked about earlier in the year, that when students feel connected to school, and I would contend when adults feel connected to their jobs, they're more likely to do well and be successful. And so we want to create those opportunities for that to happen. We also had an opportunity just over the last week, and today I got an opportunity to attend a conference, but we took a group of students, a group of African-American students, high school and middle school, to a leadership conference. The last week was a high school conference that Fresno has put on for the last 13 years. We were invited to attend this year, and we took about 40 to 60 kids, I don't remember the exact number, but to Fresno Convention Center with 1,300 kids, where they got to experience something that they have never experienced with great feedback. But it was an opportunity for them to just be exposed to something new. But also we did the same thing with some of our middle school students today. So we took 30 kids to a middle school conference at Clovis North High School, and we actually had 2 of our young men from the middle school, 7th graders, who were highlighted for their brilliance. The speaker called one of them up, and he got to go up on stage, and the speaker said, I will give you $100 if you can answer this question, because he thought he wouldn't be able to answer it. And he wasn't able to answer that first question, but it was a kind of extended question, and he said, you're not going to be able to answer this, so I'll give you $20. And he asked him, what is the symbol for hieroglyphics, whatever. And so I can't answer it. But the young man paused for a minute, and he said, it's an M, I believe. And the gentleman was flabbergasted and said, yes, that's exactly right. He gave him his $20. But this was just an opportunity. And that young man, which was surprising, because when I heard his name, I remember hearing his name because they were asking me for help to support him in the school. Well, that young man walked off that stage prouder than ever, because he was recognized for something beyond his behavior, but his intellect. his intelligence, his brilliance. And so we want to create opportunities for that for our kids. And then eliminating really zero tolerance, but eliminating hate speech and discrimination within our schools. And we know how we do that. We do that with education, we do that with connection, and we do that with making sure that we follow up on issues as they arise, making sure that we address them immediately and that we address them respectfully and tactfully, and we do so with a level of diligence and support to ensure that it doesn't occur again. But connections are important to ensure those things do not continue to happen. And then revising our student dress code. This really started with feedback from our students. Our students have supported us with their thoughts with regards to what our dress code policy should be. And of course, we have dialogue with other individuals, other stakeholders with regards to what we as a district would like to look for in our dress code. But it was really about, for our students, equity in our dress code. That our dress code should not be swayed one way for young ladies and not as stringent for young men. And so if our dress code is going to be enforced, it needs to be enforced equitably. It needs to be fair for all students involved. And some of our students felt that the dress code was treating young ladies a lot different than it was young men. And so we need to take a look at that and make sure that we make the change to support everyone in that, but also ensure that we're enforcing the dress code equitably and supporting students that way. And so we're continuing to work on that and making sure that we have the necessary changes. And as we get into those changes, we will begin to bring that forward to you as a board. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. That's it.
So our next steps, we're going to be working again in May with our combined inclusivity task forces to develop our future targets for next year. We're going to examine the updated data. We're in the process of developing surveys which we can get out to our parents and our students and staff on some of the topics that we've received data on before. We want to see if we're making progress or not. And then we've talked with the Common Grounds, which is our community inclusivity task force. We've talked with them about next year maybe making some site visits. And so we can examine and get into some classrooms and examine, do we feel like we're making progress? Does it look like, what evidence do we see that students and staff feel inclusive? Talking to some people, doing some student and staff focus groups. So we're really starting to plot out what next year is going to look like because the work really is just beginning. And as you've probably noticed from the other slides that Brendan talked about, we have in our board policy some of the work we've been doing with the task force. The board policies will be coming to you for dress code, hate speech, etc. And so with that, that ends our presentation unless you have any questions.
Is there any public comment? Come right up.
Good evening, President Crabtree and members of the board. My name is Ben Cummings. I'm the activities director at Golden West High School. I'm here today to speak about our thanks as activities directors for making us full-time, because I cannot stress to you enough how awesome it is to be able to focus almost exclusively on what we're doing on our campuses every day. For example, today I came here from the basketball game that I will be returning to after I'm done speaking to you, because we are constantly busy and we are constantly doing amazing things for our students. And there are 3 new activities directors in the district, including myself, and all of them have felt so supported by our ability to start meeting with each other during PLC time, with our ability to not have to go home, and I'm an English teacher, or I was, and I don't have to go home and grade 100 essays now, which makes my life a lot easier than if I were to have to go home and do that after, staying until 8, 9, 10 p.m. for all the events that we have. I'm partially here because I was asked, Ms. Gamoyan contacted me to talk about some of the things we've been doing and kind of offer support and ask kind of what we need moving forward. And I wanted to be able to speak to that a little bit of what some of the things are that we talk about as activities directors. One of the big things we talk about is recognition of how late we're on campus. When we go to a football game, we're tearing down after that football game ends. That football game will end at 11 p.m. and we're there still cleaning up. That's one of the big things that we're kind of constantly doing. And the amount of hours that we commit to our students and that our students commit is almost insane, right? And what we're doing is an astronomical amount of work, and at the same time, we are finally able to focus on just that. For many, I'm sure many of you have met Alex Gluckman, and he has been, an activities director for many years. And he every day will come and be like, "You're so lucky. You're so lucky. You're so lucky that it's full time," because he knew what it was like to not have that access to the time that we have now. With that being said, some of the things that we think about are security. We don't have a secure job in that if our principal doesn't like us an activities director, they get to get rid of us, even if they just want someone else in that position, right? We don't have security in that way the same way we would if we were just an English teacher or just a history teacher. And so we like the idea that there's some idea or some respect to that given of what our role is and how defined our role is. Because right now, I am on the pay scale as a teacher. There is no specific pay scale separation for me as a teacher. So when I have to do something like tell a club advisor or someone else, "Hey, you're not going to be able to access your money because I don't have a constitution and an ASB budget," I'm doing that as someone who's equal to them according to the way our positions are titled. And that's something that we're constantly having to struggle with because we are not in a real position of power. Not that we should have tons of power, but there needs to be some idea of where we stand and what our position is. We've been working with Brandon and the Equity Task Force on a class that kind of promotes the ideas of equity across campus. We believe that as activities directors, we're doing that already. We're doing a lot of that on our campuses. We're doing a lot to promote those ideas on campus, and we want the ability to expand that by being able to focus on our school site even more. There's so many things that we already are doing, but we want to continue those things by being able to focus almost exclusively on just ASB. There's a million awesome things, awesome programs that are happening at our schools, and we can't thank you enough for offering us the opportunity to be full-time. And there's not really much else for me to say, but thank you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Other public comment? Board member comments? Ms. Gamoyen?
Well, here I am again. So I did a lot with student activities. I visited a couple activities directors. I looked at Mrs. McBride's February calendar and I was floored. I'm very happy that they are full-time. In talking to them, I don't believe that they have the time, nor do they want to add a class. They were talking about the Changemaker class. I don't believe that they have the time, nor do they want to teach that class. Having one activities class, talking about those things with their activities class, I think that's already happening. You heard Mrs. McBride has her Senate. They are doing activities, when they're doing lunchtime activities. Sometimes during football season, there'll be senior sunrise, starts at 4 o'clock, and then there's a game, and they're not getting home till midnight. They do a lot. So I would like to recommend that we hold off on that Changemakers class, giving them something else that they have to do, a curriculum that is not in place. I think that's asking a lot of them. I'm also finding that these activities directors are taking over as far as making sure freshmen are connected. So I'm not sure of the effectiveness right now of Link Crew when the ASB are the ones that are taking up that slack. Our freshmen, our captive audience, our ASB directors are working with them, connecting them to the school. So I think there's a lot for them to do, and I'm very, very thankful that they are full-time. I think that it would be nice that they do have time to get together, plan out calendars, share ideas, what they can do, celebrations. Like this month is African American Month. Having celebrations. Last month they had celebrations and did things around voting. So I think they're doing the work with equity without having that extra class.
As we have gone through the development of that extra class and talking to them, much of what you have said has become quite apparent, and so I would suggest that we would back away from the class as well. Last year, Greg Price and district administration worked with the ag teachers There was a lot of concern with the ag teachers of the amount of days they work, the number of hours. Animals go into labor whenever they feel like, not on a teacher's calendar. And so we had lots of interesting discussions about that, their FFA duties versus their ag teacher duties. And we worked collaboratively with the ag teachers and with VUTA and developed really a list of what things would look like, some baselines. And I would suggest that that would probably be a very beneficial process for our new Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources Development and our VUTA president to engage with the activity directors, as well as, some of the high school principals or vice principals of the student programs.
Board Member Naylor.
Yeah, thank you. Out of my mouth, but also, and I've been overseeing on a campus for years and years and years of activities directors, and I can vouch for the fact that I am just so thankful they're full-time. But their job is inclusivity. Every activity that they do, from a minor senate to, breaking down the walls, to activities, to, linking up kids with the upperclassmen. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And so I would like to do a recommendation that we do put that class on hold. I don't know how we do that, so that they can really focus on trying to get the equity and the inclusivity on our campuses, because I think if they are full-time and we really give them the opportunity to work together to develop that calendar and all the things that they need to do, we will see a big difference in our kids.
The course is currently on hold, and we were going to get together with them, but in talking with them, it seems like we have some more basic things to work out for them, so we don't burn them out. And so the class would be on hold until we brought it back to you.
Thank you.
Board Member, Mr. Foster.
I'd actually like to get with you, I'd like to follow you for part of a day, not the whole day. I like this idea of getting people involved, because what's a real tragedy is people are connected to somebody in Paris, but yet they don't know anybody in Visalia. I mean, that's a tragedy. And people who are alone are unhappy people, and unhappy people create an unstable community. And so what I think you're doing is tremendous, and I want to thank you for the vision that you have for creating these positions, because even if it's a few people that you help, it's worth it. Thank you.
Dr. Vasquez.
I like that we're working together on this, and the real shift that we've seen with really all departments working together. But we did spend a whole lot of money and a whole lot of time to send a lot of people to training, so that we could implement some things that we know are not going well here. So maybe putting a whole class for our full-time, you're full-time, is not the right answer, but I want to make sure that we are taking all the training that we just got and all the things that we know we need to address on our campuses. We've had activity directors for a long time, and inclusive or not, we got some problems on our campuses. So I just want to make sure, I'm really happy that we're using the model that I've seen so many times over the last year or two of really using teams to kind of figure things out. Just like, we know we got all these problems, but we also know we had a team working on that we really make sure that now that we're looking, and this is why it's so important to have diverse people here. So from your experience of actually being on campus, but I really think we have to make sure that we use all that training that we got and all those people to be able to guide the people that are in those positions working on inclusivity and help them, give them some tools, give them some guidance, give them, how are we really going to make our classes, our campuses inclusive? How really are we going to address some of the things that we have? Because we could have a whole nother binder of stuff that we've still got to fix when we talk about, the culture and the inclusivity that we have. So let's go forward. Let's go forward together, and let's do it teamwork-wise. So thank
Ms.
you.
Travis, did you have a comment?
Hello, so I'm Savannah Travis, and I'm the school board representative from Redwood,
And I wanted to add to Mr. Cummings' testament because I am also an active member of ASB. And so through that, having the full-time activities director has really helped because they can be completely invested in us and into the whole student body from our schools. Because I know that the activities director put in a lot of hours, and the more hours they have to dedicate towards inclusivity for the students on campus, the more they can help us. Because they put the students in charge of a lot of things, and a lot of us are first-time members of ASB, or we're first-time organizing certain events, and so we need that help and that experience that the activities directors can help provide for us. And so since they're full-time, they have that time to devote to us.
Thank you for that. All right, Ms. Gamoyan.
The other thing I'd like our staff to consider is breaking down the walls, because that is an incredible program. The way what happened is we do it, and then it's great, everybody loves each other for a month, there's no follow-up, and everything goes back to the way it was. So doing the breaking down the walls, if we do that, or some kind of similar program, making sure there's constant follow-up throughout the year.
Mr. Guerrero?
Question, are the task forces, student inclusivity, staff inclusivity, and the common ground, is the membership still intact? Have we lost
Definitely.
folks?
We have added some as well with the new year. And every year, especially with the students, we need to add. We hope to, with their voice, really, and them giving us the direction they want to go in, change it a little bit for next year, because we've been very policy-focused, which is a okay place to start, but there's other work to do, but we need to get direction from them on where they want to go and bring in other members.
Well, and I asked that in the vein that Ms. Kamonian said, in terms of breaking down the wall, you do something, and then everything just goes by the wayside. Now, I'm glad the dress code is being worked on. When is it scheduled to be completed? When is it coming to the board?
The what? I'm sorry. The what? Oh, the dress code. It's in, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. It's in the policy manual, so is it next week? I think we're meeting the small board policy review, and then it'll come to the board after that.
Thank you.
Any other board member? All right, thank you very much. All right, moving on to student representative report. We've already heard from Ms. Savannah Travis, who's standing in for Jacob Chrisbach. And she's from Redwood.
Hello. So we have a lot going on our high school campuses. To start with, within VCIS, the individual sophomore academic progress appointments have begun. Each sophomore will be engaging in conversation with the college and career counselor in regards to their future. VCIS will hold its last financial aid workshop on Monday, February 24th at 9 a.m. on West Campus. And VCIS wishes its co-ed basketball team good luck on Friday, February 14th versus Tech Prep. Moving on to Redwood. Redwood had their musical, The Wizard of Oz, last weekend, and they had a very, very successful showings on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The girls soccer is entering D1 playoffs this week as the 6th seed. Basketball is finishing league this week, and they currently have a 5-game winning streak. The spring sports have begun conditioning for their school with their individual sports. Redwood FBLA won the Central Section Conference Championship last Saturday, with multiple students placing in their events and qualifying to compete at state. And this week is Love Week at Redwood, where the students are enjoying fun dress-up days, lunchtime activities, and a picnic on Friday. On the LD Monte campus, LD FBLA had a great competition and is state-bound. Their mock trial will be advancing to the semifinals. Their academic decathlon has had a great season and will be having a team advance to their next round. Their chess club competed in a tournament, having players get up to 3 wins. LD is getting ready for their Kindness Week that kicked off today. And they hosted a tailgate for girls soccer and wrestling. And they're hosting the Visalia ASB Spring Fling Dance. And so they have hosted many committee meetings, and they're continuing to prepare for the Aloha Spring Fling themed dance. The Sequoia campus, Sequoia will be having their second game this Friday. Sequoia High School will have COS on campus on the 13th for a FAFSA workshop, and they've started to clean up campus in preparation for their move to the new campus in August. So it sounds very exciting. VTech students have participated in their Made for Excellence and Advanced Leadership Academy to improve team building and chapter community building skills. VTech is extremely proud of all of their 10 recent FFA state degree recipients. VTech Avid classes, along with their scholarship and PTO foundation, has been busy preparing for their annual Denim and Dynams event to be held at the International Agri Center on March 7th. Tickets may be purchased in the VTech's office, so that's where you can get them if you're interested. The VTech ASB is hosting a Valentine activities during lunch all week and is busy planning for the upcoming VTech blood drive. At Golden West welcomes their brand new band director, who is working hard with the Winter Drumline and Winter Color Guard programs for their upcoming competitions. And Golden West is excited for the upcoming Kids Day. They had their first meeting and they saw over 400 Trailblazers wanted to sign up to participate. And then finally, on the Mount Whitney campus, they've just finished their Winter Sports Celebration Rally, and they recognized their athletes and entertained the crowd. The teachers joined in a half-court shooting contest, which sounds really fun. And Mount Whitney is celebrating Kindness Week this week from the 11th and the 12th, and they will have lunchtime activities. They decorated the campus with kindness quotes in chalk as well. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Travis. Good report.
Thank
All right,
you.
Now, we'll move on to board member reports. Mr. Foster.
First of all, welcome, Ms. Travis. I hope you feel at ease and welcome here on the dais. And also, I want to congratulate the two new permanent members of our team. Hope they feel comfortable on this side of the dais. I visited Viva Blunt School and visited with Mrs. Garza, the principal there, and in particular, I wanted to visit the special ed people that are at that school. What really amazed me was the teachers and aides who were multi-generational. In other words, their parents were doing the same job they're doing, and they passed on their love of the job onto them, and they're working for us. I was really amazed at that progress. So I enjoyed my visit at Viva Blunt. Thank you.
Mr. Fulmer.
I just wanted to read a note that I was sent. The stadium at Golden West came into being because of Bill Bree. He raised, as I recall, a couple of $1 million. Of course, it still took more than $7 million. At the same time, we put in an all-weather track at Mount Whitney. This happened because their track coach raised around $100,000. Again, the district had to pitch in more than twice that. The common thread is that folks at both schools put up a good bit of money of their own. They had a want they made into a reality due to a huge amount of effort on their part. Mineral King Bowl has the same history. The bowl was built by community members with their own sweat and money. Thank you.
Board Member Gamoyan.
I went to the community talks on equity, and I was really impressed with that. The community wants to help and support our teachers in our district. It wasn't just, we're going to come here and complain. They wanted to be proactive in how they could help, and I loved that. And then I visited Houston School, and Mr. Leal is very proud of his teachers. He raised up a lot of pips and stips that are doing really well there. So that's smart.
Dr. Vasquez.
I got to see Wizards of Oz. Bubbles were a very nice effect, very impressive. I got to see more middle school wrestling. I think I've seen all our teams wrestle now, which I really enjoy, in case you haven't heard. I got a chance to go visit Sarah Seymour. We talked about curriculum and lots of other cool stuff. I got to go to Creekside and go to a Shenotzley circle, and it really made me realize I usually just go to the graduations and hear the kids talk about how much they've grown and the process, and really, and this was the very beginning. So I finally got to see the before. I've been seeing the after all this time. I am just even so much more impressed with the teachers and with the curriculum, because some of those kids are hard. It's just, they've got, their own agendas and their own stuff. So I just, again, heads up to to those people work in Shinonen and Jovenoble, because it really takes a lot of patience. What else? I want to remind you all that California Latino School Boards Association is having that training on the 22nd. It's a free training. It's here in Visalia. If you haven't signed up yet, please do so. We'll be doing some census stuff and some stuff on equity and some stuff on reading data and things. I got to go to Seroptimus, where they celebrated one of our own. Congratulations, Jackie Gaby, and it was wonderful to see the principals and the school district support one of our own and really be able to highlight all the work that she's done here. Which also made me think about, just like I was saying about AAUW, that I think that might be another organization that we might hit up as a resource to be able to work with Sarah Seymour and bring more community members in to actually help us do some of that reading one-on-one and that kind of stuff. You know, just it's not just money that people can give, but we got a whole bunch of retired teachers, and if we can get them organized to come once a week or to come for a week, you know, a couple of times. So I'm real excited about continuing that conversation. And then I just want to remind you, we've got CTA dinner coming next week. Anyway, all busy.
Board Member Naylor?
I also want to congratulate our two new members to superintendent. So congratulations, Mr. Cardoza and Mrs. Samavia. I know you'll do a great job, so thank you. We all, well, actually, all of us attended a special board meeting, and I really appreciate, thank you, Mr. Graber and Mr. Hernandez and everybody that was there to give us a little insight into finances for the district and the bond and how that all came about, and it was very informative, and I appreciate all the time that you took with us to kind of explain that to especially us new board members, because there's a lot involved in when you make a decision, is this the right decision? Is this where we need to go? Is this what the community wants? And so one of the things that I am going to request, though, tonight is that that the architects, and I asked this at one of the other special board meetings, that they bring back some options, some different options for the new school, for the bond. And what I mean by that is I asked if there's a way that we can kind of make some modifications to it, how that would affect it, pricing and all that. And so before we move forward, I again am going to request that so that we as a board can see what that cost is going to be. You know, there was option one, there's option two, and option one was just way over here, and option two was way over there. So please bring back some modifications to the plan that maybe looks a little more bearable. I guess that's the thing I want to say. Also, I'm looking forward to going to the Green Acres Middle School Mermaid, the Little Mermaid, this Thursday. So, Ms. Corliss, I can't wait to see it. Thank you.
Mr. Guerrero?
Yeah, I attended the Hispanic Advisory Committee meeting. I also went to girls basketball, and then today I was at a girls softball before I came to the board meeting. And I really agree that we did have a productive study session on the high school. I thought that discussion needed to happen. And I revisited Redwood High School and talked to two different Jovenoble groups, male and female groups. And then I was involved with Sequoia Startup with their Jovenoble, which they'll do for the next 8 weeks. That's it.
I have no report. Dr. Ravelin?
Yes. Yesterday was a holiday for our classified staff, but our certificated staff was highly engaged in professional development activities around the district. This morning, I was invited to attend the opening of the Ag Expo in Tulare, and was able to make some possible connections for student internships with a company that does face recognition for cows. Pretty interesting, yes. They work with dairies. There's amazing things happening in agriculture that they talk about. So I thought you'd like that one. Don't forget, tomorrow night is the community forum for Measure A to allow the public to have some input. It's not going to be an in-depth study session like we did with the board. There's 2 board members, I believe, signed up at this moment. And so if a third is interested, please let Delia know. Thank you.
Is there any reason that more than 3 can attend? Because as long as there's no discussion, it would seem to me that we could all go.
But it's on a matter which you will be voting on, and so it's prudent for us not to do that.
Okay, fine. And it's time for staff dismissal. All right, we will do recommended expulsions, enclosure number 21. Do I have a motion? Motion. I have a second. I have a motion by Mrs. Naylor, second by Mr. Fulmer. All in favor?
Raising hand.
The student rep abstains. All board members vote yes.
Enclosure number 22, recommended suspended expulsions. I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Gamoyen.
Second.
Second by Mr. Guerrero. All in favor?
Student rep abstains. All board members vote yes.
Enclosure number 23, recommended reinstatements. I have a motion by Board Member Naylor, a second by Board Member Gamoyen. All in favor?
Student rep abstains. All board members vote yes.
Enclosure number 24, recommended continued expulsions. Do I have a motion? I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Vasquez, a second by Mr. Guerrero. All in favor?
Student rep abstains. All board members vote yes.
Enclosure number 25, resolution of release and non-reemployment of temporary employees. Dee Dee Somavia, congratulations to you on your new position.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, Dr. Raveline and Board President Crabtree. I'm here to bring you the resolution and release of non-employment for temporary teachers. Each year, we employ approximately 20 to 25 temporary teachers. They sign a contract for 1 year, and the purpose of that is if we have any teachers sharing a contract or any teachers on special assignment that wish to go back to the classroom, we have a spot to put them. So I'm bringing this to you for a vote. This is our legal obligation to notify them in writing that their contract is ending.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Board Member Gamoyen, second by Board Member Guerrero. All in favor?
Motion passes unanimously.
Enclosure number 26, notice of intent to employ certificated personnel and approval of provisional internship permit request. Mrs. Somavia.
So we have 2 candidates today, both for special education, and they need time to become intern eligible. They're going to be filling positions at Golden Oak and at Compass.
Do I have a motion? I have a motion by Board Member Naylor, second by Board Member Fulmer. All in favor?
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank
And
you.
enclosure number 27, request for board member to attend conference. Dr. Raveline.
Yes, this is a request for Dr. Vasquez to attend the California Association Bilingual Educators. We brought this forth to you in January. Since that time, Dr. Vasquez has made alternative arrangements for lodging and such, and is requesting now only $600 from the board's travel and conference budget.
I'm sure it won't be that much. It's $150 for my registration and mileage. I got everything else.
Is there any discussion?
I don't know if we have board policy or whatever. I'm going to vote for this, but I believe that we need some kind of board policy for how many you can attend or how much money you spend, so that that's not questioned anymore.
I believe we are working on that, and this is probably the reason that we're doing it, so that's great.
And if I may, when I first requested this in lieu of the other stuff, that when we go to CSBA, usually the hotel rooms, and I have to stay there longer because I represent the whole region and our district, right, are like $250 per room, and it's $1,000. And my whole thing is that I had no problem. I had a room already scheduled to pay $300 instead of $1,000 to stay there, and just to offset the cost, so that I'm not spending any more than all of you, but I'm getting a lot more done and being able to go to a lot more stuff. It didn't work out that way because the way that it was written, it was done, and by then it would have cost as well. But I'm very conscious of cost, and I don't mind, going and learning more so that I can be better here. But just so you know, I am very very cost conscious.
Is there any other comments?
I also agree that we need to work on a policy, and, I feel that this is CABE, which is what the acronym stands for. We already talked about that, but there's other things. There's CASBOs, there's conferences on special ed, and I think the board needs to be at those places because we're making decisions overall on folks that are teaching those classes.
And so I'd request that we get a list of what those are. I would think annually for the dates. So do I have a motion?
So move.
I have a motion by Mr. Guerrero, second by Ms. Gamoyan. All in favor?
This name has a deep voice. That was false.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all for attending, and good night.